the Werewolf Duke dragged me to his lair and said I'd be his queen. My name is Rachel Thornfield, and the night the Duke came for me, I was prepared to die. Not dramatically, not heroically, just quietly. The way poor people die when they've run out of options and the world has run out of patience. I stood at the window of our crumbling townhouse in London's East End, watching the rain turn the streets into rivers of filth. Behind me, my younger sister Cynthia slept fitfully on the only bed we had left. The creditors had taken everything else. The furniture, the paintings, mother's jewelry, even father's books, though those had sold for almost nothing. We had 3 days before they came for the house itself. I was 24 years old, unmarried, unemployable due to our family's scandal, and responsible for a 16-year-old sister who deserved so much better than this. Rachel? Cynthia's voice was small in the darkness. Are you crying? I wiped my eyes quickly. Just tired, darling. Go back to sleep. We're going to lose the house, aren't we? I wanted to lie, to tell her everything would be fine, that I had a plan, that someone would help us. But Cynthia deserved the truth. Yes, I said quietly. In 3 days. What happens then? I don't know. That was a lie. I knew exactly what happened to pretty young women with no money and no family. The workhouse if they were lucky. The streets if they weren't. And Cynthia was beautiful, dark hair, violet eyes, the kind of face that would attract the wrong kind of attention. I'd rather die than let that happen to her. A knock at the door made us both jump. It was past midnight. No legitimate caller would come at this hour. Don't answer it. But I was already moving toward the door. Maybe it was the landlord, come early to throw us out. Maybe it was one of Father's creditors, tired of waiting for money we didn't have. Or maybe, and this was the worst possibility, it was one of the men who'd been following me for the past week. Well-dressed men who watched our house from the shadows. Men whose interest in me couldn't possibly be good. I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain latched. A woman stood in the rain. Middle-aged, expensively dressed, despite the weather, with sharp eyes that assessed me in a single glance. Miss Rachel Thornfield? Her voice was cultured, educated. Not a creditor then. Who's asking? My name is Panya. I'm in service to the Duke of Blackmoor. She held up an envelope, its seal bearing a crest I didn't recognize. His Grace requests your presence. Immediately. I don't know any Duke. Nevertheless, he knows you. And he's prepared to settle all your debts. Every penny your father owed in exchange for 1 hour of your time. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. All our debts? £5,000. Paid in full before dawn. All he asks is that you come with me tonight. 1 hour of conversation. If you're unsatisfied with his proposal, you'll be returned home with enough money to start fresh somewhere new. You have my word. It was a trap. Obviously. Men didn't pay £5,000 just to talk. Especially not to ruined women like me. But £5,000 would save Cynthia. Would give her a chance at a real life. Rachel. No. Cynthia had appeared behind me, reading the situation with frightening clarity. You can't trust this. I don't have to trust it, I said. I just have to try. What if they hurt you? What if... Then you take the money and leave London. Go to Aunt Margaret in Cornwall. Live the life you deserve. I turned to Panya. If I come, you give my sister £100 tonight, before we leave. The rest goes to our creditors. Done. Panya produced a purse and counted out the money. £100 in gold sovereigns, gleaming in the lamplight. I pressed the coins into Cynthia's hands. Hide this. If I'm not back by dawn, go to Cornwall. Promise me. I promise me. Rachel, promise me. Tears streamed down her face, but she nodded. I promise. I kissed her forehead, grabbed my cloak, and stepped into the rain with a woman I didn't know, heading toward a Duke I'd never met, toward whatever fate awaited me in the darkness. The carriage was black, elegant, and pulled by horses that seemed too large and too quiet. "What does he want?" I asked as we rattled through London streets. "Your Duke. Men don't pay £5,000 for conversation. His Grace will explain everything. Is he old? Diseased? Is that why he needs to buy women?" Pania's lips twitched, almost a smile. "The Duke of Blackmoor is 32 years old, and in perfect health. He has no shortage of women willing to warm his bed. This is about something else." "What?" "Survival." The word hung between us like a threat. Before I could ask what she meant, the carriage turned onto a private road. Trees pressed close on either side, their branches forming a tunnel that blocked out the moon. We weren't in London anymore. We'd been driving for over an hour. I'd lost track of exactly how long, and we were in the countryside now, far from any help if I needed it. The estate appeared suddenly, a massive Gothic manor house that looked like it belonged in a nightmare. Black stone, towering spires, windows that glowed with amber light. Beautiful and terrible in equal measure. "Blackmoor Hall," Pania announced. "I thought we were meeting in London. His Grace prefers privacy for these discussions." The carriage stopped. Before I could change my mind, Pania opened the door and gestured for me to follow. The entrance hall was magnificent, all marble and dark wooden tapestries that depicted hunting scenes. But there was something wrong with it. And the servants who appeared to take my cloak moved too quietly, watched me too intently, like I was prey that had wandered into a predator's den. This way, Pania led me up a grand staircase to the second floor. We passed portrait after portrait of stern-faced men, all bearing the same crest as the letter, all with the same distinctive features: strong jaws, high cheekbones, and eyes that seemed to follow me down the hallway. We stopped at a set of double doors. Pania knocked once. "Enter." A voice called from within. Deep, commanding, the kind of voice that expected obedience. Pania pushed the doors open and gestured me inside. "His Grace, the Duke of Blackmoor." I stepped into a study lined with books and lit by a roaring fire, and standing by the fireplace, silhouetted against the flames, was the most beautiful and terrifying man I'd ever seen. Tall, easily over 6 feet, broad-shouldered, with the build of a soldier or a laborer, not a pampered aristocrat. Dark hair that fell to his collar, and eyes that caught the firelight and threw it back in shades of amber and gold. Not human eyes. He studied me with the same intensity his servants had shown, looking at me like I was a puzzle he needed to solve. "Miss Thornfield," he said finally, "thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice. You bought me." His expression flickered. "Surprise? Respect? I paid your debts. That's not the same as buying you." "Then I'm free to leave?" "After our discussion, yes. If you choose." He gestured to a chair. "Please, sit. This conversation will go easier if you're comfortable." I sat because my legs were shaking, because the weight of his attention was overwhelming, because something in this room, in this man, triggered every instinct I had to run. But I'd never been good at running from things that frightened me. "You're wondering why you're here," the Duke said, pouring 2 glasses of wine. He offered me one. I didn't take it. "I'm wondering if you're going to kill me." He laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his stern face into something almost warm. "No, Miss Thornfield. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to offer you a choice." "What kind of choice?" He set the glass down and moved closer. Not threatening, exactly, but deliberate, letting me see him fully in the firelight. "I need a wife," he said bluntly. "Someone brave, intelligent, and desperate enough to accept an unusual arrangement. Your circumstances make you ideal." I stood up, anger cutting through fear. "So this is about marriage? You couldn't find a proper lady, so you're buying a poor one? You misunderstand. I'm not looking for a conventional wife. I'm looking for a queen." "A queen?" of something you don't yet know exists. Something that will sound insane when I tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because you deserve the truth before you decide." He took a breath. "Miss Thornfield, what do you know about werewolves?" I stared at him, then laughed a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Werewolves? You brought me all the way here to tell me fairy tales?" "I brought you here to offer you a kingdom, one that exists in the shadows of England, ruled by creatures your kind dismisses as myth." His eyes caught the firelight again. "What I ressen eyes of Weisse, what I ressen eyes of Weisse," and for just a moment, I saw something inhuman looking back. "I am Roland Blackmoor, Duke of Blackmoor, and Alpha of the British werewolf clans, and I need you to be my Luna, my mate, my queen." "You're insane." "I'm desperate. There's a difference." He moved to his desk and pulled out a dagger. Before I could react, he drew it across his palm. Blood welled up, dark and red. Then, as I watched in horror and fascination, the wound began to heal. Flesh knitting together, skin sealing over the cut until there was no trace of injury, just blood on his palm. He wiped it away, showing me unblemished skin. "Still think I'm insane?" he asked quietly. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The rational part of my mind was screaming that this was a trick, an illusion, anything but what it appeared to be. But I'd seen it. Seen impossible healing that no human body could achieve. "What are you?" I whispered. "I told you, werewolf. Alpha. And desperately in need of a mate before my enemies use my unmarried status to challenge my rule." He sat down, suddenly looking tired. "I have 2 weeks before the challenge moon, 2 weeks to present a bonded mate, or I lose everything. My title, my territory, my pack. Thousands of werewolves who depend on me for protection. Why me? Why not marry one of your own kind? Because werewolf politics are poison. Any female I choose from the clans creates enemies from the families I don't choose. But a human mate, one with no clan loyalty, no political baggage that's neutral, that's safe. Safe for you. What about me? You would be treated as royalty, protected by the most powerful pack in England, given wealth, status, power. All I ask is that you stand beside me for 2 weeks. After the challenge moon passes, if you want to leave, I'll let you go with enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. And if I stay?" His eyes met mine. In them, I saw loneliness that matched my own. Desperation that mirrored what I felt every day trying to save Cynthia. "Then you'd be my true mate, my Luna, queen of a world you never knew existed." He paused. "I won't lie to you, it's dangerous. My enemies will target you. Pack politics are vicious, and the bond between Alpha and Luna is not something to enter lightly. But my sister would be safe, protected. She'd be family, pack. No one would touch her." I thought of Cynthia, sleeping in that cold townhouse. Thought of the streets waiting for us. Thought of all the ways the world would destroy a beautiful 16-year-old girl with no protection. "If I agree," I said slowly, "I want it in writing. My sister's safety, my freedom to leave after 2 weeks, and answers. You tell me everything about what I'm getting into." "Done." Roland the Duke, the werewolf, the impossible thing sitting across from me, extended his hand. "Do we have an accord, Miss Thornfield?" I looked at his hand. Large, scarred from old fights, marked with silver burns that I now understood meant something terrible. This was insanity. Agreeing to marry a monster, to become queen of creatures that shouldn't exist. But I'd been about to die in 3 days anyway. At least this way, Cynthia lived. At least this way, I had a chance at something other than slow starvation in London's gutters. I took his hand. His skin was warm, electric. The moment our palms touched, something sparked between us, a jolt of recognition that made my breath catch. "What was that?" I gasped. Roland's expression was stunned. "The mate bond. It's not supposed to manifest this quickly. Not with humans. Unless..." He stared at me like I just transformed into something miraculous. "Unless you're more than human. I'm not a werewolf. No. But you might have werewolf blood. Distant. Dormant. It would explain why the bond recognized you immediately." He smiled, and for the first time, he looked genuinely happy. "This is better than I hoped. You're not just a political convenience. You might actually be my true mate." "I don't know what that means." "It means," he said gently, "that you and I are about to embark on something neither of us expected. Something that might save both our lives, or destroy us completely." He pulled me to my feet. In the firelight, his eyes were definitely not human anymore, amber and gold and full of wolfish hunger. "Welcome to my world, Rachel Thornfield. Welcome to the lair of the Wolf Duke. Day where, every tree." And despite every logical thought screaming at me to run, I stayed. Because for the first time in 2 years of watching my family fall apart, I felt like I might actually survive this. Even if survival meant standing beside a monster and learning to become queen of the darkness. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I'd agreed to marry a werewolf, become queen of creatures that shouldn't exist. And now I sat in the most luxurious bedroom I'd ever seen, trying to process the fact that my entire understanding of reality had shattered in one evening. Panya had shown me to the Luna suite, apparently reserved for the Alpha's mate for over 300 years. The room was massive, decorated in deep crimsons and golds, with a canopy bed large enough for 4 people, and a bathing room that had actual running hot water. "Try to rest," Panya had said before leaving. "Tomorrow, your education begins." Education in what? How to rule werewolves. How to survive among predators. How to pretend I wasn't terrified out of my mind. I paced the room until dawn, watching the sun rise over the estate's massive grounds. From my window, I could see forests stretching for miles. And in those forests, shapes moved. Large, 4-legged shapes that definitely weren't dogs. A knock at my door made me jump. "Miss Thornfield?" Panya's voice. "His Grace requests your presence for breakfast, and then your lessons begin." I dressed in clothes that had been provided, a simple but elegant day dress that fit perfectly despite no one having my measurements. Werewolf senses, I supposed. They could probably smell my exact size. That thought was not comforting. Breakfast was served in a small dining room that overlooked the gardens. Roland was already there, looking far too alert for someone who'd also been up late negotiating with a stranger. "You didn't sleep," he observed as I sat down. "How could you tell? Your scent has hints of exhaustion and stress. Also, you have circles under your eyes." He poured coffee blessedly, normal coffee, and pushed the cup toward me. "I apologize for overwhelming you last night. This is a lot to process." That's an understatement. I sipped the coffee. It was perfect, strong, hot, exactly what I needed. "So, you're a werewolf. You need a wife. I'm apparently your true mate, despite being mostly human, and I have 2 weeks to learn how to be a queen." Essentially, yes. "Where do we start?" His lips curved. Not quite a smile, but close. "You're very pragmatic for someone whose world just turned upside down." "I've had practice. My father lost everything in bad investments 2 years ago. Then, he died of shame and grief. Mother followed 6 months later. I've been watching my world crumble for a while now. This is just a different kind of impossible." Something shifted in Roland's eyes. "Understanding. I'm sorry. Losing your parents while trying to protect your sister. That requires strength most people don't have, or stupidity. I'm not sure which." "Strength," he said firmly. "And it's exactly why you'll make a good Luna. Werewolf queens need to be strong above all else. The pack respects power. And did Parian maint of face? I don't have power, I have desperation. Those are often the same thing. Roland stood and offered his hand. Come. Let me show you what you've agreed to rule. Blackmoor Hall was even more impressive in daylight. Roland led me through corridors lined with portraits and tapestries, all depicting wolves in various states hunting, fighting, running under full moons. My family has ruled the British werewolf clans for over 400 years, Roland explained. We're not the only pack, but we're the strongest. The Alpha of Blackmoor has always been the High Alpha, the leader all other packs defer to. Until now? I guessed. Until now. My father died 3 years ago. By werewolf law, I had 2 years to prove myself as Alpha and secure a mate to stabilize the succession. I managed the first part. The second... No. He grimaced. I've been difficult about it. Why? Because werewolf females are. He searched for words. Politically motivated, ruthless. Every unmated female from every major pack has made it clear they'd love to be Luna. Not because they care about me, but because they want the power. And I'm different because I don't want the power? You're different because you're honest about what you want. You want your sister safe. You want security. You're not pretending to love me or scheming to manipulate me. That's refreshing. We emerged into a large training courtyard where dozens of people, werewolves, I corrected myself, were sparring. They fought with an intensity and speed that shouldn't have been possible. Punches that would kill humans just made them laugh. They moved like liquid violence. This is the Pack Guard, Roland said. Elite fighters who protect Blackmoor lands and enforce my authority. A massive man with scars covering his arms approached. He bowed to Roland with clear respect. Alpha. Is this the human? This is Rachel Thornfield, my chosen mate and your future Luna. Roland's voice carried authority that made even this giant warrior straighten. Treat her with the respect due to your queen. The warrior studied me with obvious skepticism. She's small, fragile. How will she survive the bonding ceremony? The pack won't respect weakness. Then teach her not to be weak, Roland said simply. Roland, meet your combat instructor. If you're going to be Luna, you need to know how to fight. I stared at the massive warrior, then at Roland. Fight? I've never hit anyone in my life. Then you'll learn, quickly. Roland's expression was serious. Rachel, you need to understand something. The werewolf world is violent, brutal. Status is earned through strength. If you can't defend yourself, if you can't command respect, the pack will eat you alive, literally. That's not reassuring, it's honest. And I promised you honesty. He squeezed my shoulder gently. I believe you can do this. You've survived impossible circumstances already. This is just a different kind of survival. The combat lesson was humiliating. The warrior, whose name was Marcus, started with basics: stance, balance, how to throw a punch without breaking my own hand. Within minutes, I was sweating, frustrated, and completely outmatched. Again, Marcus barked after knocking me down for the 10th time. A Luna doesn't give up. A Luna apparently gets beaten to death by her own guard. I gasped from the ground. Better me than an enemy. He offered his hand and pulled me up with ease. You're quick to learn. That's good. But you fight like a human. All technique. No instinct. You need to find your inner wolf. I don't have an inner wolf. Everyone has one. Yours is just sleeping. He handed me a wooden practice sword. Defend yourself. He attacked. I blocked barely. He pressed harder. And suddenly I wasn't thinking anymore. Just reacting. Dodging. Striking. Using my size as an advantage instead of a weakness. For 3 seconds, I actually held my own. Then Marcus disarmed me, and I ended up on my back again. Better, he said with something like approval. You stopped thinking and started fighting. Do that every time, and you might survive the challenge, Moon. Lunch was served back in the small dining room. I limped in, covered in bruises, and found Roland waiting with an amused expression. "How did your first lesson go?" "I'm going to die. Marcus sent word that you show promise." Coming from him, that's high praise. "He threw me on the ground 12 times, and you got up 11 times on your own. The 12th time you needed help. That's impressive for a human." Roland pushed a plate toward me. Roasted meat that smelled incredible. "Eat. You need strength." I ate ravenously, surprised by how hungry I was. "What happens next? More combat training?" "No. Next you meet the pack elders. The senior werewolves who advise me on pack matters. They'll want to assess you. And ever. Assess me. How? They'll ask questions. Try to determine if you're suitable to be Luna. Some will be hostile. They wanted me to choose a werewolf mate. Others will be curious. All of them will be evaluating whether you're strong enough to survive in our world. And if they decide I'm not, Roland's expression darkened. Then, they'll challenge your right to the position, which means you'll have to defend yourself, politically and possibly physically. You're saying I might have to fight werewolf elders. Not fight, exactly. But you'll need to prove you're not weak, that you can lead. He leaned forward. "Rachel, I know this is overwhelming. I know you're terrified. But I've seen something in you that the elders haven't yet. You have the soul of a survivor. You do what needs to be done, no matter how impossible it seems. That's what makes a good Luna. That's. What if I fail? Then we both lose everything. But I don't think you will fail. I think you're going to surprise everyone, including yourself." His confidence should have been reassuring. Instead, it just made the weight of responsibility heavier. The pack elders met in a council chamber that looked like it belonged in a medieval castle. 12 werewolves, 6 men, 6 women, sat in a semicircle, all watching me with varying degrees of suspicion, curiosity, and hostility. Roland stood beside me, a solid presence. "Honored elders, I present Rachel Thornfield, my chosen mate and your future Luna." A woman with silver hair and eyes like winter spoke first. "She's human, mostly." Roland agreed. "But the mate bond has recognized her. She carries dormant werewolf blood. Dormant blood is not the same as pack blood," a scarred man growled. "She has no training, no understanding of our ways. How can she lead when she knows nothing of who we are? She'll learn. She's already begun training with Marcus. In 2 weeks?" Another elder scoffed. "She'll be slaughtered at the challenge moon. This is folly, Alpha. Choose a proper mate, one of our own, and start a civil war between the families I don't choose?" Roland's voice was steel. "You know the politics as well as I do. A human mate is neutral. It's the only choice that doesn't create enemies." "Then you've chosen poorly," the silver-haired woman said. "This girl will get you killed. This girl will get you killed." Something in her tone, the dismissive contempt, the assumption that I was worthless, sparked anger in my chest. The same anger that had kept me alive through 2 years of poverty and humiliation. I stepped forward before Roland could stop me. "You're right," I said clearly. "I am human. I don't know your ways. I've been at Blackmoor Hall for less than a day, and I'm terrified of everything I've seen." The elders exchanged glances, surprised that I'd spoken. "But," I continued, "I've survived things you haven't. I've watched my family fall from grace and kept my sister alive through sheer will. I've made impossible choices and lived with the consequences. You think I'm weak because I'm human? Fine. Underestimate me. It'll make it more satisfying when I prove you wrong." Silence. Then the scarred elder threw back his head and laughed, a booming sound that echoed through the chamber. "She has spirit. I like her." He looked at Roland with new respect. "Maybe you chose better than I thought, Alpha. She's got fire. Fire isn't enough, the silver-haired woman said coldly. But it's a start. Very well. We'll allow this human to train as Luna. But if she fails at the challenge moon, the blood will be on your hands. Roland Blackmoor. Agreed, Roland said. The council dismissed us. As we walked back through the corridors, I felt Roland's approval through that strange connection between us. That was well done, he said quietly. You stood up to them, showed strength. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite fear. You did exactly what a Luna should do. You defended your right to be here. Did I? Or did I just make enemies? And both, he smiled. Welcome to werewolf politics. From now on, everything you do will make some people love you and others hate you. The trick is making sure the right people love you enough to keep the wrong people from killing you. That's a terrible way to live. It's the only way to survive. He stopped at the door to my suite. Rest. Tomorrow, you meet the pack. All of them. And they'll be far less polite than the elders. That night, I lay in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. 2 weeks until the challenge moon. 2 weeks to learn to fight, to lead, to become something I'd never imagined. 2 weeks to decide if I could really be queen to a pack of monsters. Or if I'd die trying. Outside my window, wolves howled in the forest. And somehow, impossibly, the sound was starting to feel like home. I woke to Panya shaking my shoulder urgently. Miss Thornfield, Rachel, you need to get up. Now. The pack is gathering for the presentation ceremony. You have an hour to prepare. I sat up, disoriented. Presentation ceremony? When an alpha chooses a mate, the entire pack must witness and accept her. It's tradition, and with you being human. Panya's expression was worried. It's going to be difficult. She wasn't wrong. An hour later, I stood in front of a mirror wearing a dress that somehow managed to be both beautiful and terrifying. Deep burgundy, almost the color of blood, with silver embroidery that caught the light. It was cut to show strength rather than fragility. High collar, long sleeves, a silhouette that commanded attention. You look like a Luna, Panya said with satisfaction. Now you just have to act like one. You look like a Luna. End quote. How do I do that? Don't show fear. Don't back down. And whatever happens, don't let them see you cry. Werewolves respect strength above all else. Show weakness, and they'll tear you apart. Literally, sometimes. Not reassuring. Roland met me at the entrance to the Great Hall. He wore formal attire all black, with a Blackmoor crest embroidered in silver. He looked every inch the alpha. Powerful. Commanding. Dangerous. Ready? He asked. No. Good. Honesty is important. He offered his arm. Remember, you're not just Rachel Thornfield anymore. You're my mate, my chosen Luna. Act like you deserve to be here, and they'll believe it. And if I can't, then fake it. I've been faking confidence for 3 years. It gets easier. The great hall doors opened, and I stepped into chaos. Hundreds of werewolves packed the massive space. Men and women of all ages, all turning to look at me with eyes that gleamed with inhuman intensity. The noise was overwhelming conversations that stopped mid-sentence, growls of assessment, whispers that sounded like accusations. Roland led me to a raised platform at the front of the hall. As we walked, the crowd parted, creating a path. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others stared with open hostility. When we reached the platform, Roland turned to face the assembly. His voice, when he spoke, carried authority that silenced every conversation. Pack Blackmoor, Werewolves of England. I present to you Rachel Thornfield, my chosen mate and your future Luna. The hall erupted in noise. Some cheered. Many more shouted protests. She's human. She'll die in the first challenge. This is an insult to proper werewolf females. Roland raised his hand, and silence fell. Not immediately, but gradually, as his alpha presence asserted dominance. She is my choice. The mate bond has recognized her. That makes her Luna by right of the old laws. The old laws also say a Luna must prove herself. The voice came from the crowd, a young woman pushing her way forward. She was beautiful in that predatory way. Some people are all sharp edges and dangerous curves. I challenge the human's right to lead us. Buy and close. The hall went completely silent. Roland's jaw tightened. You dare challenge my authority? Celine? I challenge her fitness. Celine corrected. Her eyes locked on me. The old laws are clear. Any pack member may challenge a new Luna to prove she's worthy. I invoke that right. Accepted, Roland said, though his voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Name your terms. 3 trials, Celine said, circling the platform like a shark. Pack law knowledge and proof of the mate bond's strength. If she fails even one, she's unworthy to be Luna, and you must choose again. The crowd roared approval. They wanted blood. They wanted to see the human fail. Roland looked at me, and through our bond, I felt his question. Can you do this? I thought about running, about saying no, demanding he find someone else, someone who actually belonged in this world. Then I thought about Cynthia, about the life she'd have if I succeeded, about the streets that waited for us if I failed. I accept, I said, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. Celine smiled all teeth. Then let the trials begin. Then let the trials begin. The first trial was physical combat. They led us to an arena behind the hall, a circular space surrounded by stone seating where pack members gathered to watch. Marcus stood at the edge, wearing his combat instructor face. The rules are simple, he announced. Fight until one of you yields or is unable to continue. No killing blows, no permanent damage. Everything else is permitted. Celine transformed. I'd seen Roland's eyes change. Had known intellectually that werewolves could shift. But seeing it happen, watching a woman's body contort and reshape into something between human and wolf was horrifying. She stood 7 feet tall now, covered in gray fur. Everything I wasn't. This isn't fair, I shouted at Roland. I'm human. I can't transform. The challenge was issued, Roland said, his voice tight with frustration. By pack law, I can't interfere. But you're not required to fight in shifted form. Human against hybrid is permitted. Then she'll kill me in seconds, only if you give up. Marcus threw me a wooden staff. Use your advantages. She's stronger, but you're faster in human form. Smaller target. Lower center of gravity. Make her size work against her. Celine laughed a sound that was half growl. The human wants advice? She lunged. I dodged barely. Her claws whistled past my face, close enough to feel the breeze. I swung the staff at her legs. It connected with a satisfying crack, but Celine barely stumbled. Pathetic. She grabbed the staff and yanked it from my hands, snapping it like a twig. Is this your Luna, Roland? This fragile thing? Anger surged through me. Hot. Burning anger at being dismissed. Underestimated. Treated like I was nothing. Something inside me roared response. For just a moment, my vision sharpened. My senses expanded. I could smell Celine's confidence. Hear her heartbeat. Feel the exact moment she'd strike next. I moved without thinking. Celine's next attack missed. I was already inside her guard, my fist connecting with her solar plexus. Not hard enough to really hurt her, but enough to surprise her. She has wolf blood, someone shouted from the crowd. The human has wolf blood. Celine's eyes narrowed. Dormant blood won't save you. She attacked with renewed fury. I dodged, countered, used every trick Marcus had beaten into me over the past day. It wasn't enough. Celine was too strong, too fast, too experienced. She caught me with a backhanded blow that sent me flying. I hit the arena wall hard enough to see stars. Yield, Celine growled, standing over me. Accept that you're not worthy. I tasted blood. Everything hurt. Every rational thought screamed at me to give up, to let someone else take this impossible burden. But I thought of Cynthia, of the promise I'd made to protect her, of all the times I'd wanted to give up over the past 2 years and kept fighting anyway. No, I spat blood and pushed myself up. I don't yield. Celine's expression shifted from contempt to something like respect. Why? You're beaten. Everyone can see it. Because yielding means my sister dies on the streets. Because I made a deal, and I keep my promises. Because I'd rather die fighting than give up. Silence fell over the arena. You're insane, she said. But she was smiling. Brave and insane. I can respect that. She offered her hand. I yield. The crowd erupted in confusion. You what? Someone shouted. I yield, Celine said louder. She's beaten. Can barely stand. But she won't give up. That's Luna behavior. That's what our pack needs, someone too stubborn to quit even when they should. She pulled me to my feet. You passed the first trial, human. Don't make me regret it. I medi-hatted. Twalled in the 24. I medi-hatted. Don't make me regret it. I medi-hatted. I medi-hatted. I medi-hatted. Things the watching. I medi-hatted. She walked away, leaving me standing in the center of the arena, bleeding and confused. Roland was beside me in an instant. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. Are you all right? I'm alive, that's good enough. He laughed, a sound of relief and pride. 1 trial down, 2 to go. The second trial was pack law knowledge. They gave me 1 hour to study werewolf legal codes that had been developed over centuries. It was impossible. Even if I'd had weeks, I couldn't have memorized all the laws, precedents, and traditions that govern pack behavior. But I'd grown up in a lawyer's household before father's disgrace. I knew how to find patterns in legal text, how to identify core principles that everything else built upon. So I focused on that. Not memorizing specifics, but understanding the foundation. Hierarchy, honor, and survival. Everything in werewolf law came back to those 3 concepts. The test was administered by the silver-haired elder from the council, Lady Margaret, as she introduced herself. I will ask 10 questions, she said coldly. Answer 7 correctly, and you pass. Fail, and you prove yourself unfit to lead. The first few questions were straightforward. Pack hierarchy, alpha authority, the rights of lower-ranked wolves. Then she asked, a beta wolf challenges an alpha's decision regarding territory borders. By pack law, how should this be resolved? I thought carefully. The alpha has final authority on territory matters, but a challenge to alpha judgment must be heard publicly. If the beta's reasoning is sound and supported by pack elders, the alpha must reconsider or formally reject the challenge with explanation. Refusal to hear the challenge is grounds for questioning the alpha's fitness to lead. 7. Also 5 knows 5ly. Lady Margaret's eyebrows rose slightly. Correct. You understand the principle of accountable authority, she continued. Question after question about laws I'd never heard of, using the principles I'd identified to work out logical answers. I got 8 out of 10 correct. You pass, Lady Margaret said, and for the first time she didn't sound hostile. You think like a lawyer, not a warrior. That may serve you well in pack politics. My father was a solicitor, I said, before he lost everything. Then perhaps something good came from his disgrace after all. She inclined her head slightly, not quite respect, but acknowledgement. You're smarter than you look, girl. Don't waste it. 2 trials down, 1 to go. The final trial was the worst. proof of the mate bond's strength, Celine had demanded. And now I stood in the great hall again, facing Roland across a distance of 20 feet, while the entire pack watched. The mate bond between Alpha and Luna is sacred, Lady Margaret explained. It's what allows them to lead as one unit. A weak bond means a weak leadership. So we test its strength. How? I asked warily. The Luna must call her Alpha. No words. No physical contact. Just the bond. If it's real, if it's strong, he'll respond. That's impossible. I barely understand what the bond is. Then you'll fail, Lady Margaret said simply. But those are the terms of the trial. I looked at Roland. His expression was carefully neutral, but through our connection, I felt his worry. He believed I could do this, believed in me more than I believed in myself. But I had no idea how to call him without speaking. You have 1 minute, Lady Margaret announced. Beginning now, panic surged. I closed my eyes, trying to feel the bond. It was there, that strange electric connection that had sparked to life when we first touched. But it felt thin, new, underdeveloped. 30 seconds. I thought of everything Roland had done for me, paying my debts, protecting Cynthia, treating me like I was worth something when the rest of the world had decided I wasn't. 45 seconds. The bond pulsed, stronger now. I focused on that feeling, on the connection between us, and pushed everything I felt through it. Not words, but emotion, need, trust, the growing certainty that despite the insanity of this situation, Roland Blackmoor might be the first person in years who actually saw me, who believed I was more than my circumstances. 55 seconds. Roland, I whispered, not out loud through the bond. His eyes snapped open. He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, pulling me against him with enough force to knock the breath from my lungs. I heard you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Rachel, I heard you through the bond, clear as day. The hall erupted in noise, shock, approval, disbelief. The bond is true, someone shouted. The Alpha chose well. Lady Margaret's expression was carefully neutral, but I saw surprise in her eyes. The trial is past. Rachel Thornfield has proven herself worthy to be Luna. That night, there was a feast. More food than I'd seen in 2 years, and pack members who now looked at me with curiosity instead of just hostility. Celine approached with a glass of wine. You surprised me today. Most humans would have given up after the first trial. I can't afford to give up. I know. I heard about your sister. The debts. She studied me. You're not doing this for love, are you? This is survival. Isn't that enough? For now. She glanced at Roland across the room, but the mate bond changes things. What starts as convenience often becomes real. Be careful, Rachel Thornfield. Falling in love with an alpha is dangerous. I'm not going to fall in love with him. That's what they all say. Celine smiled. Good luck, Luna. You're going to need it. Celine smiled. As she walked away, I felt Roland's presence behind me. You did well today, he said quietly. I got lucky. If Celine had wanted to kill me, but she didn't. You earned her respect. That's more valuable than winning through strength. He hesitated. The bond is getting stronger. You feel it too, don't you? Thanks for watching. And only don't wreck you wear. And only don't wear. And only don't with her everlasting of wear. I mean some of all over of wear. I mean some of all I did. That connection between us was deepening, becoming more than just a tactical alliance. Roland, what happens after the challenge moon? If we survive, if I choose to stay, what does being your mate actually mean? His expression was serious. It means being bound to me for life. The mate bond, once fully established, can't be broken. It means ruling beside me, making decisions that affect thousands of werewolves. It means danger, always, because my enemies will target you. And if I choose to leave, Then I keep my promise. You go free, with enough money to take care of Cynthia forever. The bond will fade without completion. You'll forget most of this. Return to your human life. Would you be all right if I left? He was quiet for a long moment. I'd survive. I always do. But he met my eyes. I'm starting to hope you won't leave. Is that selfish? Probably. But it's honest. I took a breath. I'm starting to hope I won't leave either. Is that insane? Definitely. But we can be insane together. He smiled. And for the first time since this madness began, I smiled back. Whatever happened in the next week and a half, at least I wasn't facing it alone. At least I had an alpha who believed I was strong enough to survive his world, even if I wasn't sure I believed it myself. The next week passed in a blur of training, politics, and slowly growing comfortable in a world that still felt impossible. Marcus continued my combat training. I learned to fight dirty, using an opponent's strength against them, targeting vulnerable points, surviving rather than winning. I'd never beat a full werewolf in fair combat, but I could make them work for their victory. Lady Margaret tutored me in pack law and history, hundreds of years of werewolf civilization that humans knew nothing about, secret councils that influenced governments, packs that controlled territories across the world, a hidden society that had existed alongside humanity since before recorded history. And Roland taught me the most important lesson: how to be Luna. It's not about strength, he explained as we walked the estate grounds. It's about presence. When you enter a room, the pack needs to feel your authority. They need to know you're capable of leading even when I'm not there. How do I do that when I'm terrified half the time? You fake it. Project confidence you don't feel. Make decisions quickly, even if you're unsure. Werewolves respect boldness over caution. He paused. And you protect those weaker than you. That's what makes a good leader, using your power to shield others, not to dominate them. Is that what you do? I try. It's harder than it sounds. There are pack members who challenge my authority constantly. Others who want me to be more violent, more tyrannical. Being a fair alpha makes you vulnerable in werewolf society. Then why be fair? Because someone has to be. Because the alternative is what my grandfather was, a tyrant who ruled through fear and killed anyone who questioned him. I watched him break my father's spirit. I won't become that. There was pain in his voice. Old wounds that hadn't healed. Your father, I said carefully. How did he die? How did he die? Challenging my grandfather. He couldn't stand watching the pack suffer anymore. So he invoked the right of challenge, single combat for the position of alpha. Roland's hands clenched. Grandfather tore him apart, made it last hours, as a warning to anyone else who might consider rebellion. And you became alpha after that? After I killed my grandfather in turn. 3 years ago. I was 29. I was 29, barely experienced, but the pack was desperate for change. So I challenged him, and by some miracle, I won. His expression darkened. I told myself I'd be different, better, but sometimes I wonder if I'm just delaying the inevitable. If all alphas eventually become monsters. I took his hand without thinking. You're not a monster. You paid my debts when you could have bought me for less. You gave me a choice when you could have forced me. That's not monstrous behavior. Yet, he squeezed my hand. Thank you for believing in me. Even when I don't believe in myself. The mate bond pulsed between us, stronger every day, more impossible to ignore. I was starting to understand what Celine had warned me about. This wasn't just tactical alliance anymore. I was beginning to care about Roland Blackmoor as more than just the werewolf who'd saved my sister. That was dangerous, because in 4 days, the challenge moon would rise. and everything we'd built could shatter. The challengers arrived on the 10th day. I was in the library, one of the few places I felt safe when alarm bells rang throughout the estate. Pania burst through the door. They're here, the rival alphas. 3 of them, with their packs. They've invoked the right of challenge. My blood ran cold. Roland said there might be challenges. But 3? They formed a coalition. Unusual, but not unprecedented. They're claiming Roland has weakened the bloodline by choosing a human mate. They're demanding he either replace you or surrender his position. Can he fight 3 alphas? Pania's expression was grim. No. Not even Roland is that strong. He'll have to choose one as primary challenger, but the others will demand trials too. It's politics. They're using you as an excuse to seize power. I ran to the great hall where Roland stood on the platform, facing 3 massive werewolves and their assembled packs. The hall was packed hundreds of werewolves, tension so thick it was hard to breathe. The first challenger was a scarred brute named Nathaniel. Your mate is human, Blackmoor. Weak. A disgrace to the position of Luna. Reject her, or I'll take your title. The second challenger, a sleek female named Victoria, smiled coldly. Or give her to me. I'll show your pack what real strength looks like. The third challenger, younger, but no less dangerous, stepped forward. I'm Maddox, Alpha of the Northern Pack. I don't care about your human. I just want your territory. But if removing her makes it easier. He shrugged. Roland's voice was controlled fury. Rachel Thornfield is my chosen mate, recognized by the mate bond and accepted by pack law. She's passed every trial required. Any challenge to her is a challenge to me. Then we challenge you, Nathaniel said. Traditional combat. 3 nights, 3 fights. If you lose even one, you surrender your position and your territory. And if I win all 3, then we'll acknowledge your right to rule, for now. Victoria's smile was predatory. But you're not what you used to be. Roland, 3 years of ruling with mercy have made you soft. You'll fall. The pack murmured agreement. Some looked at Roland with doubt, others with anticipation of bloodshed. Roland's eyes found mine across the hall. The answer came without hesitation. Don't you dare die for me. We survive together, or not at all. His expression softened. Then he turned back to the challengers. I accept your challenge. 3 nights. 3 fights. Beginning tomorrow at moonrise. His voice carried absolute authority. But know this, I've never lost a challenge fight. I don't intend to start now. That night, I found Roland in his private study, staring at maps and documents. You should be resting, I said, preparing for tomorrow. I'm preparing by thinking. Physical strength won't be enough. These 3 are experienced fighters, and they're coordinated. They'll share information about my tactics after each fight. Can you beat them? Nathaniel, yes. He's strong, but predictable. Victoria is trickier. She fights smart, not just hard. And Maddox. Roland frowned. Maddox is young, hungry, and has nothing to lose. That makes him dangerous. What can I do to help? Stay alive. If something happens to me, Pania will get you and Cynthia out of England. I've made arrangements. Roland, let me finish. He stood, moving to face me. If I lose, the new Alpha might try to claim you or kill you to cement their power. Either way, you're in danger. Promise me you'll run if it comes to that. No. Rachel, no. We made a deal. 2 weeks, remember? It hasn't been 2 weeks yet. I'm staying. I met his eyes. Besides, the mate bond won't let me leave. Not now. Not when you might die. The bond has gotten stronger. More than stronger. Roland, I can feel you constantly now. Your emotions, your thoughts, sometimes. Is that normal? For true mates, yes. The bond deepens with time and proximity. Eventually, we'll be able to communicate telepathically, feel each other's pain, sense each other across distances. That sounds terrifying. It is. but it's also... He searched for words. It's like never being alone again. Like having someone who understands you completely. For a werewolf, it's the most precious thing in the world. And for a human, I don't know. It's never happened like this before. You're unique, Rachel. The first human Luna in 400 years. The first mate bond with a non-werewolf that's actually real. He touched my face gently. I know you agreed to this for practical reasons. To save your sister, but I need you to know I'm starting to care about you as more than just a political convenience. That's probably not fair to you. Why not fair? Because you didn't choose this. Not really. I bought your compliance with money and desperation. That's not the foundation for anything real. I thought about that. About how this had started a transaction. A business deal wrapped in supernatural madness. But now when I looked at Roland, I saw someone who believed in me when no one else did. Who was willing to die to keep his promise to protect my sister. Maybe it didn't start as something real, I said slowly. But it's becoming real. At least for me. I don't know if that's the mate bond or just you. But I'm not here only because you paid my debts anymore. Then why are you here? Because you need me. Because I think I might need you too. Because the thought of you dying tomorrow makes me want to scream. He kissed me, then desperate, fierce, like he was drowning and I was air. The mate bond exploded between us, flooding me with his emotions. Fear, hope, longing, and underneath it all, something that might have been love. When we broke apart, we were both shaking. I'm going to win tomorrow, Roland said fiercely. All 3 fights. I'm going to win, and you're going to stay. And we're going to figure out how to make this impossible situation work. Promise? Promise. It was a promise he might not be able to keep, but we held each other anyway, pretending that our wills could overcome impossible odds. Pretending that love, if that's what this was, could triumph over politics and power and hundreds of years of werewolf tradition. Tomorrow would tell us if we were right, or if we'd been fools to hope at all. The first fight began at moonrise. They'd cleared the arena behind Blackmoor Hall, creating a massive circle ringed with torches. Every werewolf pack in England had sent representatives, hundreds of creatures, all gathered to watch their high alpha fight for his position. I stood in the front row with Pania and Marcus, my heart hammering. It'll be all right, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Roland survived worse. Has he fought 3 alphas in 3 nights? No. No one has. The coalition is unprecedented. Pania's hand found mine. But if anyone can survive it, it's him. Roland entered the arena first, already half-shifted. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in black fur, with eyes that gleamed gold. His hybrid form was magnificent and terrifying pure predator. Nathaniel entered from the opposite side. Larger than Roland, broader, covered in scars that testified to decades of brutal fights. He grinned, showing fangs that could tear through steel. Ready to die, Blackmoor? Nathaniel's voice was a growl. Ready to die. Ready to defend what's mine. No ceremony. No speeches. Nathaniel attacked first, a massive haymaker that would have crushed Roland's skull. The crowd roared approval. They fought with a savagery that made my combat training look like a children's game. Claws and fangs. Strength that cracked stone. Speed that blurred. Within minutes, both were bleeding from dozens of wounds. But Roland was faster, more controlled. Where Nathaniel relied on brute strength, Roland used technique, precision. He targeted joints, tendons, vulnerable points that slowed Nathaniel down. 30 minutes into the fight, Nathaniel was limping. 45 minutes, he was bleeding too heavily to continue properly. Yield, Roland commanded, standing over the fallen alpha. Never. Roland's claws were at Nathaniel's throat. Yield, or I finish this. Your choice. Nathaniel's eyes burned with hatred, but he knew he'd lost. The crowd erupted. Roland had won the first fight, but two more waited, and I could see the toll it had taken. Deep wounds that bled freely, exhaustion that made his movements slower. He had to heal, had to rest. But the second fight was tomorrow night. Would 24 hours be enough? The next day, Roland slept. Dr. Park, the only pack physician I trusted, examined him thoroughly. The wounds are healing, but not fast enough. He'll be at maybe 70% strength for tonight's fight. Can we delay it? No. The challenge moon rises for 3 consecutive nights. The schedule is sacred. The schedule is sacred. The schedule is sacred. The schedule is sacred. I sat beside Roland's bed. The mate bond pulsed with his dreams, nightmares of failure, of losing me, of his pack falling into chaos. I pushed reassurance back through the connection. We'll survive this. You're strong enough. His hand found mine even in sleep. When evening came, he woke with a groan. How long did I sleep? 12 hours. Your wounds are mostly healed. Mostly isn't enough. Victoria fights smart. I'll need to be perfect, then be perfect. He smiled despite the fear in his eyes. I've learned from the best. The second fight was different. Victoria didn't charge in like Nathaniel. She circled, patient, studying Roland's movements, looking for the injuries that hadn't fully healed. When she attacked, it was surgical. Fast strikes, targeting his wounded shoulder, his damaged ribs, exploiting every weakness with brutal efficiency. Roland fought defensively, giving ground, trying to tire her out. But Victoria was fresh, and he was already exhausted from the previous fight. 10 minutes in, she had him bleeding heavily. 20 minutes, he was on one knee. Yield. Victoria said coldly. You're beaten. Accept it with dignity. Accept it with dignity. Through the bond, I felt Roland's despair. He was out of strength, out of options. But then he felt me, my presence through the mate bond. Get up. I pushed through the connection. You promised you'd win. Keep your promise. Something changed in Roland. He stood, despite wounds that should have kept him down. Shifted his stance, abandoning defense for pure offense. If he was going down, he'd go down fighting. He attacked with renewed fury, trading wound for wound, giving up defense entirely. Victoria tried to retreat, but Roland pressed forward relentlessly. In the end, it came down to who wanted it more. Victoria was skilled, but Roland was desperate. When he finally pinned her, both of them were barely standing. Yield, he gasped. I yield. Roland collapsed the moment she said it. The pack physician rushed forward, but I got there first. Don't you dare die on me, I hissed. 2 fights down. 1 to go. Maddox, Roland wheezed. Tomorrow. Can't win. Too injured. Then we find a way. Together. Dr. Park stabilized him enough to move. As they carried him away, I caught Maddox watching from the crowd. Young, confident, uninjured. Tomorrow night's fight wasn't just difficult, it was impossible. Roland didn't heal in time. By the 3rd night, his wounds had closed. But he moved like an old man. Every motion was agony. The fights had taken too much. I can't win, he admitted as they prepared him for the arena. Not like this. Maddox is fresh. I'm broken. Then we changed the rules, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. The challenge is between alphas, Marcus pointed out. You can't fight in his place, but I can invoke Luna's right. Silence. Then Lady Margaret spoke up from the doorway. Luna's right hasn't been used in over a century, but it exists, I pressed. I've read the old laws. If an alpha is unable to complete a challenge due to injury sustained honorably in previous fights, his mate may demand trial by wisdom instead of combat. The challenger must prove not just strength, but worthiness to lead. That's never been invoked by a human Luna, Lady Margaret said. But there's no rule against it, is there? She was quiet for a long moment. No rule against it. But Maddox would have to accept the change in terms. If he refuses, the combat stands, and Roland must fight. Let me talk to him. I found Maddox in the competitor's preparation area. He was stretching, confident, ready to claim an easy victory. Maddox, I need to speak with you. He turned, eyebrows raised. The human Luna. Come to beg for your mate's life? Come to offer you an alternative. Roland has fought honorably for 2 nights. He's fulfilled his duty as High Alpha. But you know as well as I do that fighting him in this condition isn't a fair challenge. It's execution. So, I'll take my victory however I can get it. Will you? You're young, ambitious. You want power. But do you want to be known as the Alpha, who only won because his opponent was already broken? Is that the reputation you want? Maddox's expression flickered. I'd hit a nerve. I'm invoking Luna's right, I continued. Trial by wisdom instead of combat. Prove you can lead, not just fight. Prove you understand strategy, diplomacy, law. Show the packs that you're worthy to be High Alpha for reasons beyond brute strength. And if I refuse, then you win tonight. Easily. But every pack in England will know you took the coward's path. They'll question your fitness to lead. Wonder if you can only succeed through exploitation. I leaned closer. Accept the trial. And win fairly. That's how you earn true respect. Maddox studied me for a long moment. You're clever, human. I see why Roland chose you. Let's see if your wisdom matches your boldness. The trial took place in the Great Hall instead of the arena. Roland sat beside me, still injured but present. Maddox stood before the assembled pack elders, ready to be tested. Lady Margaret administered the trial. Answer wisely, Maddox of the Northern Pack, and prove your fitness to lead. The first scenario was strategic. A rival pack threatens your territory borders. They're stronger, better armed. How do you respond? Maddox answered immediately. Attack first. Show strength. Make them fear to challenge us again. Maddox and Affair of Accordaglu. Maddox and Affair first train. Maddox and Affair first challenge us. Maddox and Affair first just in time. And risk losing wolves in a battle you might not win? Lady Margaret challenged. Better to die fighting than show weakness. Roland stirred beside me. Through the bond, I felt his disappointment. The second scenario was diplomatic. A human government discovers werewolf existence. They demand we register and submit to oversight. What do? Refuse. If they push, eliminate the humans who know. Maintain our secrecy through force. Even if that starts a war between species? Lady Margaret's voice was cold. Humans are weak. We'd win. Roland's hand found mine. He was seeing what I was seeing. Maddox was strong, but reckless. Violent. Exactly the kind of alpha that would lead the packs into disaster. The third scenario was legal. An Omega Wolf challenges pack hierarchy, claiming mistreatment by their superior. By pack law, how do you resolve this? Punish the Omega for insubordination. Hierarchy must be maintained. Without investigating the mistreatment claim, Omegas exist to serve. If they're unhappy with their position, they shouldn't have been born weak. I stood up, unable to stay silent. You've failed, I said clearly. All 3 scenarios. You answered with violence and tyranny. That's not leadership, that's dictatorship. Maddox's eyes narrowed. And what would you have done? Human? Strategic scenario, negotiate. Understand why the rival pack threatens borders. Maybe there's a territorial compromise or shared hunting grounds. Avoid bloodshed if possible, but show strength through wisdom, not just violence. Diplomatic scenario: work with the human government. If they've discovered us, killing them only makes things worse. Help them understand we're not a threat. Create allies instead of enemies. Legal scenario: investigate the mistreatment claim. Justice matters. If the Omega was genuinely wronged, punish the superior. If the claim is false, then address the insubordination. But you don't maintain order through fear alone. The hall was silent. That, Roland said, standing despite obvious pain, is how a Luna leads. With wisdom, not just strength. With strategy, not just violence. He looked at Maddox. You're a capable fighter, but you're not ready to be high alpha. You don't understand that leadership is more than domination. Lady Margaret spoke into the silence. The trial is concluded. Maddox has shown strength but lacks wisdom. By Luna's right, he has not proven his worthiness to rule. The challenge is rejected. End. Maddox's expression went through shock, rage, and finally understanding. You outplayed me, he said to me. Both of you. Used my own confidence against me. He bowed his head, not in submission, but in respect. I concede. Roland Blackmoor remains high alpha. The hall erupted in howls of approval. We'd survived. Against impossible odds, through cleverness instead of strength, we'd survived. Roland pulled me close, and I felt his relief flooding through the mate bond. You saved me. Saved us. We saved each other. That's what mates do, right? Right. As the pack celebrated around us, I realized something had changed. I wasn't just playing a role anymore. Wasn't just surviving for Cynthia's sake. I was Luna. Really, truly Luna. And I was exactly where I belonged.